In a world where heroes are legendary, a guide without powers is seen as nothing more than a useless weakling. But Cariel defies all expectations. Using his knowledge of the labyrinth, he outsmarts all, proving that a guide's cunning can be as powerful as a hero's strength. The world may have deemed him worthless, but this is the story of how a guide forges his own path, finding the strength to become strong. A labyrinth cave stretched into the depths, a place filled with monsters and traps. Inside, a rat monster feasted on something still alive. Adventurers who entered such a place were said to fall into four kinds. At the front stood warriors, strong in body and naturally fit to lead. One such warrior raised his hand, signaling the group to halt. He noted a massive rat blocking their path. Behind him were priests, those who supported their companions with holy power. A female priest observed that this seemed to be the only way forward. The third were mages, the very core of the party. And then there were the fourth kind, those who entered the labyrinth without any abilities of their own. The party stayed low, whispering while keeping to cover. The warrior noted that there was only a single path ahead. When the rat turned in their direction, he and the priest quickly ducked, hiding until it looked away. The warrior admitted the creature had locked eyes with him, and the priest promised support, urging him to move first. Yet hesitation lingered. The two argued over who should take the lead, until another member stepped forward. He asked if he might handle the fight instead. This was the kind known as guides. The warrior and priest exchanged glances, surprised. They both recalled that a guide's role was to detect traps and point out weaknesses within the labyrinth. In combat, they were thought of as little more than ordinary people. The priest wondered aloud if it was wise to let him continue, but the warrior held his curiosity. He wanted to see how someone considered useless in battle would fight. The guide stepped forward, holding a lantern in his hand. What the warrior had said was true. Adventurers were ranked by tiers, from apprentice up to hero. Yet this guide had his own reason for moving on, and so he approached the depths of the cave in silence. The labyrinth rats thrived in darkness, their nocturnal nature keeping them from charging recklessly in the presence of light. The guide understood this weakness and decided to exploit it. As soon as he extinguished the lantern, the rat lurking nearby took notice and lunged at him. Its scream echoed through the cavern as it rushed forward with alarming speed, proving to be more dangerous than he had anticipated. He steadied his breathing, waiting. The moment the rat crossed into striking range, he reignited the lantern, flooding the cavern with light. The creature's eyes caught the glare, burning under the sudden brightness. In that instant of weakness, the guide drew his knife and struck, piercing the beast while it flinched in pain. The rat collapsed, and the fight was over. The priest and the warrior who had accompanied him were astonished. They had not known such traits about labyrinth rats, and his knowledge impressed them. Yet he dismissed their amazement, humbly noting that even novice adventurers were capable of defeating such monsters. Still, it was an improvement from his past self. Before he could relax, a warning came. Another rat towered behind him. The creature lunged, but before its fangs could sink into flesh, fire erupted across its body, consuming it in an instant. The familiar flames revealed their source, the mage Rayana, his childhood friend. They had been separated years ago but had only recently reunited, and her sudden strength surprised him. She chided him for facing such danger alone after claiming they would fight together. Though reluctant, he thanked her for saving him. As he sat down to rest, Rayana approached, sensing that something weighed heavily on him. She reminded him of his past words about becoming a hero and asked if his somber demeanor was because of a certain incident. His expression grew grim. Memories returned. Years ago, his town had been attacked by monsters. Amid the chaos, a monstrous bird-like creature loomed over them, its roar shaking the streets. While others fled, he had tried to act, to save lives, but his strength was insufficient. He could do nothing but run. In that moment, he realized he could never become a hero. Instead, he chose to live as a guide, a role that demanded less of him. Rayana grew sorrowful at the revelation, but something puzzled her. Despite his belief in his weakness, he had willingly faced the labyrinth rat alone. His answer was firm. He admitted he still had something he wanted to accomplish, something that required strength. To achieve it, he could no longer remain weak or live as someone useless. Hearing this, Rayana smiled faintly and urged him onward. Their quest was not yet complete. They still had to find the mandrake. Adventurers often made their living by taking quests, and beginners like them usually formed teams for safety. They regrouped with their allies, then divided the search. Rayana and the guide set out toward Area B, while the priest and the warrior ventured into Area C. In Area C, the warrior discovered a treasure chest. Though the priest warned him to wait for the guide's advice, he insisted he could handle it alone. The priest kept watch while he advanced. In Area B, the protagonist crouched down, sniffing the dirt in search of traces. Mandrakes carried a distinct scent, and by smelling the soil, he could locate them. Rayana, watching, found it to be an oddly guide-like method. As he examined the earth, she cast a sensory spell on his nose to heighten his sense of smell, reasoning that it might help him find the target faster. He accepted the aid, and with this enhancement, he believed the task would be easier. For Rayana, it was not much effort. She simply disliked standing around doing nothing. Soon, the protagonist pointed deeper into the cave, saying the scent was stronger there. After some time, they uncovered the mandrake. Rayana, however, noticed that he continued to follow the scent even though the plant had already been found. Thanks to the heightened sensitivity, he detected something else faint at first, but growing stronger as they advanced into the labyrinth. A foul stench drifted from the depths, one he recognized from somewhere before. It was the smell of death. Rayana sensed his growing distance, finding him harder to approach and uncertain of what to say. To break the silence, she brought up the royal army's recent victory against a bandit group. Though some of the bandits had escaped, rumors claimed that a hero had taken on the pursuit. She added mention of a missing merchant case that had occurred near this labyrinth, hinting at a possible connection. The suggestion that bandits might be hiding inside unsettled the protagonist, sending a shiver through him. Rayana speculated that ruins like these would be the perfect haven for criminals. He remained silent, staring deeper into the cavern. Playfully, she teased him, suggesting he might be scared and that she could protect him if he asked. But he finally revealed what disturbed him, the smell of corpses. At first, Rayana worried he meant her, but when he clarified, she realized the truth. The two pressed forward until the reek became undeniable even for her. At the end of the path, they found a pit overflowing with butchered bodies. Elsewhere, the priest and the warrior explored the ruins. The warrior pried open an old chest while the priest grew uneasy, the atmosphere of the palace pressing down on her. She thought she heard something, but upon looking around, found nothing. The chest groaned as it opened, startling her. The warrior dismissed her concerns, insisting he could handle such things. As she kept watch, she reflected on the size of the chamber and the possibility of hidden rooms. Still, her unease lingered. She asked the warrior if he had heard the earlier sound, but he did not respond. When she pressed again and touched his shoulder, he collapsed. His skin had turned blackened and lifeless. At that moment, the protagonist rushed back, realizing it was far too dangerous for them to be separated. Whoever lurked in the labyrinth was not just a threat, but a killer. The priest desperately worked to heal the poisoned warrior with holy power, puzzled since no visible trap had triggered. While channeling her magic, a shadow loomed over her. She turned, but before she could react, the killer slammed her to the ground and drove in with a dagger. The killer's blade drove downward, but the priest intercepted it with her bare hand. Steel pierced through flesh, yet she refused to let it pass further. The assassin pressed harder, sneering at their misfortune, declaring his intent to slaughter them all before leaving the labyrinth. He forced the dagger through her palm, angling for her head. The priest struggled desperately to hold him back. At that instant, Cariel lunged forward. He slammed into the killer with full force, throwing him to the ground. The man howled in agony as his face struck the stone floor. Struggling to rise, he found Cariel already behind him, locking an arm around his throat in a chokehold. The guide called for support, and Rayana answered. Her magic bullet pierced through the killer's body, spraying blood across the cavern. In the aftermath, Cariel tended to the priest's wound, channeling faint divine power. Rayana was astonished at this unexpected ability, but he explained it was merely for stopping bleeding, nothing more. Both the warrior and priestess had been poisoned. Escape was urgent. Rayana offered to move one of them with magic while Cariel carried the other. The fallen killer, however, rasped out a warning. His comrades were close by, and they would not survive against the bandit company. If they surrendered, he promised them a painless end. Rayana silenced him with a decisive strike, declaring his words nothing but an attempt to unnerve them. Cariel searched the surroundings and discovered piles of stolen goods, confirming the labyrinth had been used as a bandit hideout. Given the evidence, the assassin's claims were likely true. From deeper in the tunnels, faint voices echoed. Others were indeed approaching. Cariel faltered. If they tried to flee while carrying the wounded, survival was uncertain. If they stayed, they risked being overwhelmed. He looked at the priest, who gazed at him with pleading eyes. A memory rose unbidden. His mother's voice whispered in his mind, covering his vision with phantom hands. She told him not to look, not to see the suffering around him, for there was nothing he could do. She reminded him of the day the monsters attacked, when his weakness forced him to abandon those crying out for help. A hero, she said, was a title reserved for the strong. With frail arms, he could save no one. Better to pretend he had seen nothing at all. Cariel trembled, nearly surrendering to that cruel truth. But then another voice broke through his name, spoken urgently. Rayana's hand gripped his arm, pulling him back to reality. She urged him to focus, reminding him the present demanded action, not despair. He apologized for faltering, forcing himself to think. The bandits had experience, numbers, and the advantage of terrain. Their own party was weakened with 2 incapacitated allies. Yet the labyrinth itself held potential. A plan began to form. He instructed Rayana to follow his lead, convinced there was still a way to escape. Deeper within the tunnels, the bandits marched quickly, urged on by their leader. They spoke of a hero pursuing them and cursed the timing of their encounter with Cariel. When they spotted him, they mistook him at first for their hunter. The leader dismissed the idea, claiming he was just another obstacle in their way, holding stolen supplies. If he returned the goods, they would let him walk away. Cariel knew better. Their words dripped with lies. Conflict was inevitable. He hurled the sack of belongings toward them. The leader praised his quick wit but declared their policy to kill all witnesses regardless. Before the order could be carried out, fire erupted. Rayana's spell detonated in their midst, flames surging through the cavern. When the smoke cleared, the bandits stood unscathed behind a conjured shield. The leader roared in fury, vowing not to die so easily. The plan had failed. Cariel immediately shifted tactics, fleeing deeper into the labyrinth to draw them away. The bandits gave chase, but the earlier explosion had drained the strength of their mage and 2 others. Even so, their leader pressed forward, relentless. Cariel ducked and dodged as attacks struck near him, his legs heavy with tension. A blow crashed against his back, nearly toppling him, but he endured. Just a little further, he thought, just a little more distance. The bandit leader gathered energy into his hand, preparing a killing strike. At that moment, Rayana unleashed her magic. The ground trembled as a massive wall erupted, sealing off the passage behind Cariel. The bandits laughed, believing he had sacrificed himself to buy time for his allies. The leader declared he would break through the wall after killing the guide. Cariel, however, denied his claim, back to Rayana and Cariel when they strategized. Rayana restated the plan. First, move the warrior and the priestess to a safe place, then attack the bandits. If that failed, they would lure them to C-section. She then expressed her confusion about the next part of the plan, blocking the C-section passage, seeing it as Cariel using himself as bait and telling her to escape alone. She wondered if he truly believed she would agree to a plan like that. Cariel clarified that was only a part of the plan, and the most crucial part was what he was about to say. He then asked if the sensory amplification magic she had just used could also be applied to auditory blocking, pointing to his ears. In the present, Cariel pulled on the mandrake buried in the ground. The mandrake, a monster that screams the moment it's pulled out, worried the bandits who thought Cariel had gone insane. If someone hears the mandrake scream, they will experience hallucinations, vomiting, and dizziness, and in severe cases, it can lead to death. The leader yelled that Cariel was trying to kill them all and everyone should cover their ears. But the solution in this case was simply not to listen. Cariel pulled the mandrake out with force, and it began to scream heavily and continuously, causing the bandits to bleed from their eyes and mouths. The mandrake's screams were abruptly silenced when the bandit leader struck it down. He scoffed, confident that Cariel had underestimated him. Yet Cariel had vanished from sight, reappearing in an instant to strike the leader with a powerful blow. The mandrake's effect had been weakened by magic resistance, allowing him to attack without hindrance. Cariel's assault moved swiftly and decisively. The mage attempted to plead, but Cariel used precise, crushing strikes with his legs, incapacitating the bandits one by one. Only a single opponent remained. That bandit lunged, but Cariel dodged with a lean and grabbed him by the waist, slamming him into the wall. When the enemy attempted an elbow strike, Cariel blocked it, preparing a counterattack. He drove his arm through the bandit's defenses, striking decisively. In the chaos, Cariel felt a sudden attack spill blood near his eye, a desperate attempt by the bandit, but he withstood it. The enemy had dug a fingernail into his head, but Cariel maintained his grip, choking the bandit until he collapsed, unconscious against the wall. With the immediate threat neutralized, Cariel and Rayana supported the wounded warrior and priestess. Relief washed over them. They had survived exactly as planned. Rayana, nearly drained of magic, admitted that without her intervention, the plan could not have succeeded. Cariel agreed her presence had been essential. Though she attempted to lighten the mood with playful praise, Cariel took the moment seriously, smiling faintly when she called him a hero. Cariel suggested that once they exited the labyrinth, they should take time to catch up. It had been a long separation, and he wanted to know how she had grown. Rayana agreed, though their reunion would have to wait. The exit loomed, and danger had not yet passed. Concentration revealed a figure waiting at the exit, smiling ominously. Alarmed, Cariel ordered a retreat back into the labyrinth. A bomb flew toward them, and Rayana reacted instantly, neutralizing it with magic. The explosion left Cariel leaning against the wall, injured but alive. The attack had been a magic stone bullet, clear proof of the bandit gang's leader. His thoughts raced to the warrior, the priestess, and especially Rayana, who had pushed her magic to its limit to protect him. As he struggled to rise, a shadow emerged from the dust. Cariel was struck in the stomach, pain radiating through his body. The bandit boss, realizing Cariel was only a guide, thought he had wasted a precious magic stone bullet on a mere guide. He dismissed Cariel's role as nothing more than a worthless task and felt no concern over it. What mattered was the mage he was certain was present, and he resolved to find and kill that mage quickly. As the bandit turned to walk away, Cariel's consciousness faded into darkness. Doubts and questions flooded his mind. Why had he always tried to save others? Was it for praise, admiration, revenge, or some childish desire to emulate heroes? He did not know. Then, memories of Rayana as a child came to him. She had once asked if he truly needed a reason to help others. Even back then, he had acted without expectation of reward. She reminded him playfully that actions spoke louder than intentions. His hesitation dissolved. Returning to the present, Cariel grabbed the bandit boss's leg to prevent an attack on Rayana. The boss kicked him away with immense force, shaking his arm, but Cariel steadied himself. Observing a wound on the leader's waist, Cariel silently thanked Rayana. Her intervention had cleared his mind. The bandit leader seized Rayana by her hair, pressing her neck against a rock. He prepared to crush her with a brutal strike. Before he could finish, Cariel attacked from behind, exploiting the injury in the leader's waist. The boss recoiled in pain, spinning to strike Cariel with a punch to the stomach, throwing him backward. Cariel drew upon divine power to partially heal himself. In that moment, all reasoning and hesitation fell away. He realized he did not need a justification to save others. The only thing that mattered was his will, the choice to act because he could, because he wanted to. He would protect those in danger, not out of duty, expectation, or vengeance, but because he chose to. The bandit boss recognized that Cariel was no ordinary man, but a guide capable of wielding divine power. Yet, he believed it would change nothing. Cariel himself thought the bandit might be right, for the situation was dire. The warrior and the priest were gravely injured, and Rayana lay unconscious. Still, if the hero who had been pursuing the bandit group was on the way, Cariel knew he had to buy some time. Cariel rushed at the bandit boss, who cautiously prepared for an attack. The boss struck first, but Cariel dodged and countered with a punch to his face. Though Cariel's strike landed, it was only a feint. His hidden knife had already shattered from an earlier blow, leaving only scratches that could not delay the enemy. He knew he had to aim for a vulnerable spot, the boss's wound. Cariel struck at the injured waist, but this time his punch was blocked, and the counter came swiftly with an elbow aimed at his head. Cariel barely avoided it, but a follow-up knee drove straight into his chest, knocking the air from his lungs. The pain was unbearable, yet Cariel forced himself to remain standing. With his body trembling, he charged again. The bandit boss considered him a fool and expected him to reveal more strength. Instead, Cariel clung desperately to the man's leg, refusing to let go. Amused, the bandit accused him of clinging to life only in hope that a hero would arrive. He seized Cariel by the neck, slamming him against the wall. At first, he had planned to leave Cariel alive, but seeing such stubbornness, he concluded that people like Cariel were even more dangerous than mages. He decided to kill him. Cariel's body had reached its limit. Even so, he thought only of lasting a little longer, apologizing inwardly for being unable to save Rayana. As the bandit boss raised a sharp stone to strike, Cariel's final thought was of the hero he had always dreamed of becoming, a figure who brought safety and peace simply by existing. At that moment, the true hero arrived, blocking the attack. The hero seized the bandit's arm, forcing him to retreat and put distance between them. The bandit questioned why the heroes pursued him so relentlessly, instead of focusing on the Demon King. The truth was revealed: the Demon King was already dead. For now, the bandit and his kind posed the greatest threat. Enraged, the boss lunged with the stone, declaring that the hero would fall that day. But the hero countered instantly, delivering a devastating punch that forced the bandit to his knees. The hero turned to Cariel, checking if everyone was safe. Cariel, bloodied and barely conscious, urged him to tend to the others who had collapsed nearby. Moments later, he lost strength and fell, but the hero caught him before he hit the ground. When Cariel next opened his eyes, he found himself bandaged in a small cathedral on the outskirts of town. The pain was gone, leaving him confused. Soon after, the hero himself appeared, assuring him of his recovery and revealing that he had made a special request of the priests for his treatment. Relieved, Cariel asked about his companions, and the hero informed him they had also been healed and were resting in the next room. Yet the hero had waited for Cariel to wake because he had something important to say. Introducing himself as Kielle, a hero serving under the royal army, he explained that although the Demon King had fallen, darker forces were emerging. Strange monsters had appeared in the forests, shadowy organizations were moving in secret, and a demon known as the Hero Hunter had begun targeting both heroes and monsters alike. The world seemed even more dangerous without the Demon King, as though others sought to fill the void left behind. Akela revealed that he had investigated the Labyrinth incident. Thanks to Cariel's quick thinking and the use of a mandrake, not only the bandit leader but the entire group had been captured. Such resourcefulness convinced him that Cariel was invaluable. There would be times ahead when strength alone could not resolve crises, and for that reason, Akela declared he needed a guide like Cariel on his journey. Stunned, Cariel could hardly believe what he was hearing. Before he could respond, he asked instead where they were headed. Akela's answer was simple. Their next destination was the Forest of Golems. From the doorway of the room, Rayana told them to hold on. She had accidentally overheard their conversation and wanted to join them. She told the hero that Cariel was the type who would get himself killed in no time and needed someone like her to watch his back. If Cariel had any sense, he wouldn't leave her behind. Cariel asked if they had some kind of deal, but she told him to forget it. She said she could take a break from school and that a mage would be super useful on any adventure. She pleaded with determination for the hero to let her come with them. So Rayana and Cariel decided to go on an adventure with the hero. They were in the Golem Forest. Cariel agreed to the hero's plan because it gave him hope for a goal that had seemed out of reach. By adventuring with the hero, he would grow stronger and one day take down that monster himself. The hero, Akela, called Cariel, telling him it was time to go and that as a guide, Cariel should show them the way. Cariel asked Rayana why she was smiling, and she explained it was because golems were kind of cute. She had made one in class before. Cariel thought that people usually pictured something huge and scary. He told her that if she got her hopes up too much, she might be let down. The party continued their journey, traveling along the steep road of the canyon. Rayana asked why they hadn't seen any golems, even though it was called the Golem Forest. He told her they were traveling along the workers' path and would encounter golems at the quarry. She understood that the place they were at was a mine, all rocks. He told her not to expect to find any small, cute golems there. Akela asked why that was. Cariel explained that those golems formed naturally, whereas mages or sorcerers used their own magic to make smaller golems. Natural golems came from huge, pure magic stones, and since this mine had a lot of them, many natural golems showed up here. The hero understood why it was called the Golem Forest. Nearby, a masked man was groaning that they always made him handle the tough stuff since he was the youngest. He decided he would let it slide. The masked man, Cariel, and the others came up on each other along the path. The masked man, just in case, hurried along. Rayana remarked that there was a shady group hanging around. Akela explained that their description was wearing white masks, hoods, and carrying bags, which matched the masked man passing them. They turned on him. He stopped, then suddenly jolted, running away from them. They were chasing him, and he was at a dead end where the road led to a cliff. Akela told the masked man to give up, as they were at a dead end. The masked man smirked and said things were not going their way. Cariel thought the situation was weirdly familiar. Akela asked what he meant. Before them was a colossal golem, towering like a mountain. The masked man told them he was the one who had tricked them into coming there. Rayana was amazed by the size of the golem. Cariel told her it was okay, natural golems didn't attack first. The hero, Akela, pointed to the golem and asked Cariel what it was trying to do if it wasn't attacking. It wasn't giving them a high five. Cariel looked up. The golem was attacking with its mountain-sized hand. The golem destroyed the pathway. Cariel, Rayana, and Akela ran in the other direction, barely escaping the attack. The hero turned, then grabbed the golem's body with force. The golem stopped. Akela asked Cariel if he could figure out what was going on. Cariel deduced that someone was probably controlling the golem from its core. The hero thought he needed to somehow distract the enemies. Inside the golem, there were other masked men. One told the other that the golem's right arm was stuck, and the other instructed him to use the left arm to hit them. He wondered what was up with these guys. Were they from the kingdom? He then looked at the hero emerging from the hole the golem had made. The masked men saw the hero in a projection and instructed that they should aim for one on the golem's arm. Rayana noticed there was another one coming. The golem swung its left arm to slam the hero. The hero analyzed that the last counterattack showed him that fighting head-on was too risky, and he would have to try something else. The hero began to dash, running on the golem's arm. As the fist came closer and was right in front of the hero, he stopped and slid into the gap between the hands, emerging unscratched. Rayana and Cariel were surprised. Even the bad guys were shocked. They couldn't believe what they had just seen, that guy climbing the golem's arm. One of them exclaimed they should go and fight, but the other one said that golemonsers like them didn't need to fight directly. Then, before the hero, two figures appeared. They were two humanoid, human-sized golems. Cariel urged Rayana to focus on the enemy they had been pursuing. She agreed, and in that moment, Cariel felt the kind of thrill he had once dreamed of as a child, the thrill of witnessing a hero's battle. Akela fought against two towering golems. One of them unleashed a beam from its head, but he sidestepped the blast with speed and grace, sword already in hand as he sprinted forward. Golem gathered energy in its palm, preparing to fire, but Kielle dashed in before it could release the attack and struck with a decisive slash that tore through its body. Only one remained. Without hesitation, Kielle rushed at the last golem. As it prepared to strike, he leapt high, driving his sword into its head while vaulting over its massive frame. In one swift motion, he cleaved the creature apart and landed heavily on the ground in a heroic stance. The golemancers who had summoned the constructs were left stunned. A high-level golem had been defeated as if it were nothing. Realizing their magic was useless against him, they considered retreating. Before they could act, Kielle had already vanished from their sight. They turned in panic and found him waiting at the entrance of their control chamber. Meanwhile, Rayana and Cariel pursued one of the fleeing men. The desperate figure tried to dissuade them, claiming he was only a low-level grunt making a delivery. Cariel admitted he couldn't close the distance and instructed Rayana to bind the man's leg with magic. She protested, unable to cast 2 spells at once while steering her broom. Cariel quickly proposed another idea. He would ride the broom while she controlled the direction. She hesitated, visibly upset, but agreed when he pressed further. As the fleeing man checked behind him, he saw Cariel charging directly at him on the broom. The collision was inevitable. They crashed through a door together, Cariel tumbling hard to the ground. His opponent wasted no time launching an attack, but Cariel dodged, grappled him, and slammed him against the floor. The man tried to rise, only to be pummeled relentlessly until he lay motionless. Cariel then retrieved the bag the man had been carrying. Rayana arrived soon after, worried for him. She admitted her flying had been reckless, and Cariel accused her of throwing him off deliberately. His shoulder ached, but when he saw her clutching her arm, his tone softened. He realized she was injured, bearing a burn-like scar. She explained it was from overusing magic in the labyrinth when her hand had overheated. Her clumsy flying earlier suddenly made sense. Cariel placed his hand over the wound and channeled divine power to soothe it. She insisted the priests had already treated her injury, but he persisted, saying it was better than nothing. She smiled faintly at his concern. As the two spoke, the captured grunt stirred and mocked them for acting so sentimental in front of him. Cariel turned his attention to the bag and pressed him for answers. The man claimed ignorance. Before more could be said, the roof gave way as Kielle descended, announcing that he had located the enemy. They were entrenched in a sealed chamber behind a powerful barrier. If forced, they would surely die, and no information could be gathered. Cariel reasoned that the only option was to prevent them from using the barrier at all. He asked Rayana about magic sealing spells, but she admitted she couldn't cast them. Searching the warehouse around them, Cariel noticed the clutter of tools and supplies left by workers. Among the items was a sack of flour. An idea formed in his mind. He questioned Rayana further, confirming that magic generated heat and that a mage touching a circle would suffer burns. With that knowledge, he explained his plan, to create conditions where using magic would be too dangerous to attempt. Inside the sealed chamber, the two golemancers spoke in hushed tones. Their reinforcements were expected soon, so all they needed to do was hold out. Suddenly, an explosion shook the room. White particles filled the air, and for a moment they thought it was smoke meant to blind them. Instinctively, they prepared to activate their barrier, but one of them realized too late what the substance was. Flour. If ignited by mana, it would trigger a devastating dust explosion. The door burst open, and Kielle stepped inside. He explained that the trick came from a guide's advice. When fine particles meet heat, an explosion follows, and mana was nothing but heat in another form. If the golemancers still wished to fight under such conditions, he would not stop them. Faced with the risk of their own magic turning against them, the golemancers surrendered. Elsewhere, far from the battlefield, a menacing figure watched events unfold. With quiet resolve, he declared that it was time to make his move. Sometime later, at the site of the earlier battle, two figures appeared. One was shrouded in heavy robes, the other was the same menacing figure from before. The robed one reported that he had searched the forest but found no sorcerers. They had arrived too late. The menacing figure dismissed the concern, saying it was no big deal. From now on, they would simply stay 2 steps ahead. Meanwhile, in a forest, Cariel and his companions traveled inside a carriage. Cariel thought it fortunate the enemy had surrendered without a fight, otherwise there would have been bloodshed. A few hours earlier, the hero had interrogated the captured sorcerers. They revealed they had used an item from the bag to corrupt the golem's core, turning it into a weapon against people. When the hero asked if holy power could purify the corruption, they confirmed it could. He then cleansed the golem and sent the sorcerers to the cathedral for questioning. With everything settled, Cariel hoped for some rest. But their carriage was suddenly stopped, startling him and waking Rayana. A group of bandits demanded they step out quietly if they wished to live. The hero exited calmly, unfazed. The bandits were startled to see a knight, but he corrected them. He was a hero. To intimidate, the bandits showed they had hostages, threatening to kill them if anyone resisted. Cariel asked what they should do, but the hero remained confident. His friend was already in position above the bandits. When the leader ordered his men to stab the hostages, the hero's ally leapt down from the trees. In a flash, he severed one bandit's hand, splattering blood, then drove his blade through his skull. Without pause, he stabbed another from behind and finally decapitated the leader. The freed hostages trembled in fear, but the newcomer reassured them they were safe. Rayana, overwhelmed by the stench and sight of blood, turned away. Even Cariel felt horrified. Rayana urged him to return to the carriage, and he agreed, though his eyes lingered on the hero speaking with the hostages. He didn't notice the other figure vanish until later when the man introduced himself. He was Ram, a hero known as Shadow. He explained that Kielle had helped him become a hero, making Kielle blush. Rayana introduced herself and Cariel, who proudly called himself a guide and mage. Cariel thought it was amazing to meet two heroes at once. Rayana, however, was confused. Why were there multiple heroes? She asked Cariel to explain. He told her the difference. The Holy Sword hero, chosen to defeat the Demon King, was the one she knew of. But there were also titled heroes, superhuman figures serving the kingdom, each with a unique nickname. Ram added that his was Shadow for his skill in stealth and assassination. Rayana frowned. Assassination didn't sound heroic. Kielle explained his own nickname, Pursuer, earned from his keen sense of smell and physical ability. There were others too, heroes known as Berserker, Arbiter, and more. Rayana's head spun from the overload of information. To summarize, she concluded, Holy Sword heroes fight the Demon King, while titled heroes follow the kingdom's orders. The misunderstanding came because the Holy Sword heroes' deeds were famous, while title heroes remained obscure unless one researched them. Cariel admitted he wanted to meet all the heroes one day. Ram teased that he might be lucky enough soon, since all heroes would gather for the Holy Sword retrieval mission. Cariel, wide-eyed, asked what he meant. The Holy Sword only appeared when a Demon King was born. Rayana paled at the thought of a Demon King's return, but Ram laughed it off, swearing he was only joking. Kielle scolded him sharply for his reckless words. Both Rayana and Cariel thought Ram was strange. Kielle reassured them there was no need to worry. The Demon King was dead, and overthinking would only cause headaches. They should focus on the current mission. When they reached their destination, Cariel asked Kielle about Ram's involvement. Kielle confirmed it was tied to their case, a string of disappearances in this forest. Since the forest was cloaked in darkness day and night, they needed Ram's skills. Their first stop was the village that had requested aid. As they traveled, Rayana noticed Cariel lingering, staring into the woods. He muttered that the disappearances must be the work of a magical beast. She asked if he had figured it out already, but he shook his head. First bandits, then sorcerers, now robbers. We keep running into humans, not beasts. Just a coincidence, right? Rayana told him it didn't matter. Solving the case was what counted. She reassured him that he was needed. Even against humans, his guidance had been vital. Still, Cariel's thoughts lingered. No way humans would risk this deep forest. It had to be a beast. The group finally arrived at the village, where the villagers had been waiting anxiously. Kielle greeted the elder, who welcomed them warmly and suggested they rest after their long journey. A room had already been prepared, but Kielle insisted they could not waste time. At the very least, they would do a quick round of questioning that evening. Kielle noted details in his book. The first to speak was a woman named Nora, who worked at the diner. Her eyes were sunken from grief. She explained that her son had vanished 3 days ago in the forest. She had been walking with him, holding his hand tightly because of the recent disappearances. But suddenly she heard a strange sound. Then everything went black. When she woke up, her son was gone. She trembled as she guessed it must have been the song of a monster. Meanwhile, Rayana and Cariel questioned a man named Mark. He admitted he had searched the forest himself but found nothing. However, he had seen something strange, a monster's silhouette. Excited, he described it as having the tail of a snake and the legs of a chicken. After comparing their findings, the group had two ideas. Rayana concluded the creature was likely a basilisk. Cariel argued it was a siren. Rayana scoffed, reminding him that she studied monsters in magic school, while Cariel insisted that as a guide, he knew better. Their bickering escalated until Ram cut in, telling them it didn't matter which monster it was, they would find out tomorrow. For now, they should rest. The next day, Rayana looked pale and weak. She sniffled, her nose red from a cold. Cariel teased that she was sick, but she retorted that he looked pale too, probably from fear of being wrong about the siren. Cariel muttered he simply hadn't slept. He'd been thinking all night about how unnatural the disappearances felt. It wasn't something humans could pull off. Kielle reminded them of their mission, find the missing child and stop the monster. With that, they entered the forest. Inside, Kielle split them into two teams. He and Ram would search to the right, while Rayana and Cariel took the left. Cariel carefully marked the places they had searched. Meanwhile, Kielle caught a faint scent of blood in the air, but it was too diluted to track. They checked near a lake. Ram suggested investigating first and slipped into the shadows, moving swiftly ahead. He suspected a siren might linger there, but when he reached the lake, he found it nearly dried up. On the other side, Rayana and Cariel had found nothing. Cariel suggested they hadn't checked the treetops yet. The forest's massive branches wove together like a roof, blotting out the sun and leaving the woods in constant twilight. Claw marks on the trunks suggested something, perhaps a basilisk had climbed up there. Rayana hesitated, but with her broom, she flew upward. Cariel called after her that if she was scared, she could come down. She answered that she was fine, though her voice betrayed her unease. High above, she spotted a large gap among the branches. Approaching it cautiously, she climbed inside. The opening was pitch black, cut off from the world below. Rayana wasn't used to the darks, and she had never faced such suffocating shadows. Only faint moonlight filtered through the branches at the edges. She conjured a dim light spell, careful not to blind herself. That was when she felt its eyes watching her from the dark. A chill ran down her spine. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears, each step echoing too loudly. Nervous, she became hyper-aware of every movement, every sound. Yet she missed the most obvious clue, the smell. When it finally hit her, she froze. A stench she knew too well, the smell of death. It overwhelmed her senses, but she couldn't tell why she hadn't noticed it earlier. She turned to leave, but something snagged her foot. She shone her light downward and froze. A severed head stared back at her. Terror surged through her body. Her mouth opened on instinct, a scream rising, but she clamped her hand over her lips to stifle the sound. Her heart thundered painfully, tears streaming down her face. Afraid even her heartbeat would give her away, she curled up, shivering, unable to move. She stayed like that for what felt like forever, until her breathing finally slowed, but the pounding in her chest never stopped. Because this time, it wasn't her heartbeat. A heavy thudding echoed in front of her. And then, from the darkness, a figure emerged. Rayana had sensed something watching her. She couldn't move, unsure whether it was her body frozen with fear or the creature's power holding her. Instinctively, she conjured a shield spell, preparing to make a run for it. Timing her escape, she turned and sprinted, but the thing struck at her head as she hit the ground. Back below, Cariel grew increasingly anxious. 10 minutes had passed, and she still hadn't appeared. What was supposed to be a quick investigation had turned into a nightmare. He resolved to team up with the heroes and climb upward to check on her. Suddenly, an explosion erupted above the trees. Debris rained down, and the shockwave even rattled the heroes' heads. Cariel's gaze followed the chaos, and he saw Rayana falling. He dashed forward and caught her before she hit the ground. Her head was bleeding, her breath ragged. Gently, he lifted her onto his back, urging her to hold on as he carried her back toward the village. Later, Rayana lay in bed, bandaged and exhausted. Kielle reaffirmed what had happened, while Ram asked if she had encountered monsters. Rayana recounted being lifted by the creature, how her shield spell had been the only defense before she blacked out, and how she had blasted the ground with magic to escape when she awoke. Kielle asked why the creature hadn't killed her. Cariel explained that basilisks could put their prey into a trance to keep them in their lair. Kielle's eyes widened. Finding the missing child became urgent. He asked Cariel if he would come along. Cariel agreed, telling Rayana he would return safely. As they ventured deeper, Cariel briefed the heroes on basilisks. Ram had heard they possessed an evil eye capable of petrification. Cariel confirmed, explaining that the creature's powers and weaknesses varied by region. Eyes should never be met directly, and a creature with a snake's body or tail might be called a cockatrice. Guides like him approached monsters differently from adventurers, studying habits, layers, and weaknesses, then strategizing to limit risks. They were experts in hunting, mazes, and monster behavior, but not especially strong. Entering the upper forest, the sense of monsters grew stronger. Kielle noted the strange mix of chickens and snakes, clearly more than one predator. Monsters, like adventurers, had ranks: low, mid, and high tier, corresponding to beginner, mid-level, and expert adventurer teams. Cariel turned to face the approaching danger. A basilisk lunged at him, its mind-bending gaze and monstrous maw threatening to swallow him whole. It was clearly a high-tier monster. Rooted to the spot by instinctual fear, Cariel recalled the awe he felt encountering monsters as a child. Kielle acted instantly, pushing Cariel out of harm's way. With a single, precise strike, his sword cleaved the basilisk's mouth and continued through its body, splitting it in two. Kielle urged Cariel to stay back while Ram spotted another basilisk charging toward him. Ram shouted that he would leave the child's protection to Cariel. Cariel agreed, knowing he couldn't be a dead weight, and prepared to locate the missing boy. The attacking basilisk slammed Ram against a tree, but he shook it off. Remembering Cariel's warning, Ram struck its eyes, blinding the creature. Blood spattered, and the basilisk collapsed. But then, surprisingly, it regenerated. Cariel, observing from a distance, realized its healing was unusual and deduced the weak point, the heart. He yelled instructions to Ram, who targeted the wings instead. Finally, Kielle leapt in, striking decisively at the basilisk's heart. The monster fell, finally defeated. As they began to regroup, a new, more terrifying presence loomed above them. Cariel's heart sank. The creature was unmistakable. A siren had appeared, its presence immediately chilling every member of the group. A siren emanated energy with a song. The hero, Kielle, could not move his body. He knew he needed to get out of there quickly, but through his visor he saw the eyes of a basilisk. Cariel thought it was crazy. How did something like that even happen? How could there be a siren there? The song was putting Cariel more and more under its spell. He thought there was no need to stay focused, and his vision was getting fuzzy. He then slammed his hands on his ears, pressuring them and tearing them apart. He told himself to get it together, that he couldn't stop there, not yet. He busted his eardrums in the process. He thought it did not matter and that he could fix it later. Kielle was walking straight toward a basilisk, which opened its mouth wide. Kielle willingly stepped right into the basilisk's mouth. As the basilisk closed its mouth, Cariel pushed Kielle away, saving him and then woke him from the spell with the shock. Kielle stood up, and they began to run from the chasing basilisk. Cariel asked where Rayana was. Kielle told him he was right next to him. They grabbed Ram with them and escaped. After they hid, they began to converse. They thanked Cariel for saving them, and Kielle healed his injuries with divine power. They needed to figure out what that strange chimera was. The chimera might also be able to regenerate, just like the basilisk from earlier. Ram expressed that above all, there was the siren's song and the basilisk's vision. He could not deal with those two attacks at the same time. Kielle added that if it could regenerate, they needed to aim for its heart. But where was its heart, or did it have two? Cariel thought deeply about the heart. Basilisks are a mix between a snake and a chicken, but the main body is definitely chicken. But if it's a siren-basilisk fusion, which one is the main body? He wondered if it was even possible to begin with. It was possible, as even last time weird stuff happened with the golem, so there might be a way to solve this just like before. He had to think a little more. He thought, I must be missing something. He told himself to think simply, really simply. It was something basic. Kielle told Ram they should leave that part to the guide and they would come up with a plan. They began to strategize using Cariel's cloak as a map. To reach the siren, they had to pass tons of basilisks, so they probably could not withstand all those mental attacks on the way. One person should be bait to buy time, and the other should target the siren. For roles, Ram asked how Kielle's sword worked. Kielle explained that he charged his sword with divine power, then released all the stored power at once. There was still divine power left in his sword. Ram took the bait role. Kielle clarified that he probably only had one chance, and he would go for the siren from behind. They asked Cariel if he had figured out which was the main body. Cariel told them there was no time, so he would tell them right away. Ram stood in front of all the basilisks, commenting that it was late at night and was the perfect stage for monsters like them. He guessed it wasn't really a fight for heroes, but if someone wore this helmet and broke a sweat, they would get it. He then prepared for battle. Even those called heroes make a good match for pitch-black nights like this. The basilisks charged, and Ram also charged at them. He attacked a basilisk with his cloak, and another one approached him, charging and attacking with its beak. Ram sliced the basilisk with his claws, gaining a view of the siren. He then leapt toward it with all his might while swiftly cutting off 3 basilisk heads. He was then right in front of the siren. He attacked the siren, or so he thought. The pressure on his body snapped him out of it. He was pinned by a basilisk on the ground. He didn't know since when that had happened to him. Kielle rushed, circling the basilisks and heading toward the siren's back. Kielle charged his sword, then remembered which one Cariel told him to aim for. He should go for the basilisk's side. Kielle tore apart the basilisk, tearing the monster into pieces. At that moment, Ram snapped back to his senses. A basilisk still blocked his path, lunging at him, but he broke through, killing the creature. Cariel reached the lair and quickly deduced that the missing child must be where the predator kept its prey. The stench from that direction was overwhelming. Amid a pile of corpses, he finally spotted the child and immediately resolved to rescue them. A basilisk blocked Cariel's approach, and he froze for a moment, measuring the danger. The child was only 10 steps ahead. As the basilisk lunged with its snake-like body, Cariel anticipated the strike, ducked low, and leaned forward to evade the attack. He grabbed the child and began to run, but he knew outrunning a basilisk was impossible. Searching for a solution, he remembered the spot where Kielle had slain the regenerating basilisk. Using the dead body as leverage, Cariel leapt, turning to keep the basilisk in view. The creature stepped on the body, causing the ground to crumble under its weight. The instability spread rapidly, threatening to engulf Cariel. He grabbed a branch with one hand while holding the child with the other, managing to keep them both from falling. When the branch snapped, Cariel lost his grip and began to fall. At that critical moment, Ram's hand caught him, preventing the fall and ensuring both he and the child were safe. The missing child was rescued without further casualties, bringing the forced disappearance case to a close. Later, Cariel rested in bed. Rayana regretted not casting a spell earlier that could have awakened him sooner, feeling apologetic. Outside, Ram stood near the door when Nora, the child's mother, arrived. She greeted the hero, explaining that the village had prepared food and gifts as tokens of gratitude. She requested Ram's presence to attend the gathering, quietly slipping into the shadows afterward. When questioned, Ram reassured her that she need not worry. As she departed, she reminded him to bring his guide companion along, a message he promised to convey. Kielle entered the room and called for Erme, checking if he was paying attention. Erme addressed her as Lady Kielle, and in that instant, the truth slipped out. All this time, we had assumed wrong. She was a girl. We had been fooled without even realizing it. Erme apologized, admitting he had been lost in thought for a moment, then asked if the investigation into the monster corpses had come in. Kielle confirmed it had, but explained that they needed to talk somewhere quiet. In a quiet place, they spoke. Ram was confused about why she wanted to see him. She told him that she had something to discuss regarding the case and what was to come. Before coming here, she was in charge of a case where a golem was attacking people. The truth was that its core had been contaminated, causing it to act like a monster. This time, it was a bizarre case of one monster combining with another. The investigation revealed that the fusion point between the siren and the basilisk was similar to the substance that had contaminated the golem. Ram asked if Kielle thought both incidents were connected. Kielle told him that the probability was very high, but what she was about to say was the main point. First, the relationship between the Demon King and the Holy Sword. Through prophecies, a phenomenon like dark clouds covering the sky could tell them that the Demon King would appear, and simultaneously, the location where the Holy Sword would appear was also revealed through prophecy. As such, the two shared an inseparable bond. While not exact, the Demon King and the Holy Sword had appeared approximately every 100 years. This has continued until now, like a law or a promise, until the hero Perseon killed two Demon Kings. The first time Perseon subjugated a Demon King was 30 years ago, and the second was 10 years ago. Something must have happened in between. She was not a hero yet at that point, so she did not know the specifics. Ram asked Kielle if she meant the law was broken by Perseon, the Judicator, but she replied that it was just a case of the Demon King unexpectedly appearing a second time. Kielle continued that she wasn't saying it was Perseon's fault. It was just that after two Demon King subjugations, what they had thought of as a law had become meaningless. Ram understood. Kielle added that it would no longer be strange if another Demon King or Holy Sword were to appear tomorrow. Ram persisted that everything Kielle was saying was just speculation. Asking Lady Kielle if it was true, Kielle confirmed it. She had no definitive proof. She also didn't know what was happening or how. However, there was one thing she could say for certain. The upcoming Holy Sword retrieval mission would be different from any they knew. Meanwhile, in a very different place, someone stood in the royal palace of Vinot. A servant conveyed that the preparations were complete and they would depart shortly. The standing person was Perseon, the hero of the previous Holy Sword.